Today I'm going to be showing you how to make your very own t-shirt yarn. So to start, all you need is a t-shirt and some fabric scissors. I have some Fiskars because they're really sharp and they just glide through the fabric. I'm going to show you how to make t-shirt yarn out of the body of a t-shirt. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut across to make a rectangle or a tube. So the bigger the t-shirt, the better. I have used, I think this is a 3XL that I got from a charity shop. It still works out much cheaper than buying t-shirt yarn, and I'll get a lot of fabric out of it. Okay, so I've cut across and I'm separating the top half from the bottom half. So this is the rectangle, this is the tube that we're going to make the yarn from. And all we have to do is you have to decide what width you want the yarn to be. So if you're working with a 10mm hook, for example, you might want to cut 1-inch strips. But the thing with t-shirt yarn is it's quite forgiving, so it doesn't really matter how thick or how skinny you cut it. Don't cut it too thin, because you know, it'll just be stringy then. But you can play around, you can do whatever thickness you want. Most people will cut 1-inch or 2-inch strips. So this is how we do it. So I'm starting here from the right, and I'm just going to cut across, so about 1 inch thick. It doesn't matter if you're not using a ruler because it's t-shirt yarn, it's stretchy. And I'm going to cut until I get to about 1 centimetre or 2, so say about 1/2 inch to 1 inch from the end. Okay, we want this seam to stay where it is so that we can unravel into one single length. Okay, so I'm going to keep cutting across here into strips, and I'm going to make sure that each time I stop about 1 inch from the edge. Okay, do not cut this seam, only cut this side all the way to the bottom. Now when you get to the last ribbon, you can cut the seam off. A lot of people just cut this seam off. It's because it's quite thick and it might not work with the yarn. Or if you have an unpicker and have the time, you could take the seam off here, unhem it, and then cut that bit into a strip as well. I am just gonna cut it off probably so that I can use all of the yarn. Okay, so I've cut that off. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the uncut edge, okay, so take the uncut edge and I'm going to weave my hand through it. I'm going to get it on my arm because I'm going to use my arm as a guide to then cut the yarn into strips. Well, not cut it into strips, I'm going to cut it into one ball of t-shirt yarn, but obviously it's a bit fiddly, especially if you've got a massive t-shirt. So I used a men's triple XL. I figured I'd get a lot of yarn that way, so I'll show you how to cut it. So just to make sure that it's draped across and that all of your, there we go, so my arm is underneath all the cut edges. Now I'm just using my arm here, and if you wanted to, you could also use your anything that is like a cylinder, so you could use some wrapping paper roll. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm at the top and I need to separate this top one. So the top right, I'm going to cut off diagonally, so diagonal sloping to the left. Okay, this is going to be the end of the yarn. And now what I do is, you see, you're going to cut into diagonal strips the whole way across. Okay, so I'm going to go from the bottom right to the top left, cut diagonal, let that go. Okay, bottom right to top left, diagonal, let that go. So cut it on a diagonal, bottom right, top left, bottom right, top left. When you get to the end, you have one more strip to cut, and then this lower left will become the end of the yarn. Okay, so grab that last strip, there's the end. You can gently stretch the t-shirt yarn. This just means you're going to get a little bit more mileage out of it. Okay, you can either stretch as you ball it up, or you can stretch it all first and then ball it up. And you just ball it up into a ball of yarn. Now for materials, I would recommend using cotton or something that has lycra or elastane in it, because it will then stretch and be forgiving when you want to use it for a crochet project or a knitting project, or you might want to do some finger crochet. As you can see, I'm getting a lot of yarn out of this because it's such a large t-shirt. So you can check in the charity shops, or if you have any friends or family members who want to part with their old t-shirts. Okay, just give that a little tug, and there we go, we have a ball of t-shirt yarn. I'll show you how I'm going to cut up the rest of the t-shirt as well. So you have a choice here. You can either just cut this up and use it as cleaning rags, or you can use it for the rest of the t-shirt. So what we could do here is we could cut just like we did here. So cut into strips. So this is the sleeve here and the sleeve seam. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the lengths just like I did before. So the first thing to do is cut that sleeve off. Okay. And now we're going to just cut across again and stop when you get to the top. So it will be a bit thicker because it's got underarm seams and sleeve seams. And this will be fiddly if you're using a smaller t-shirt as well. So do bear that in mind. What I'll do there is I'll start a bit higher up because I'll just add that bit on at the end. Okay. And then just like you did before, drape it. See, again, it's quite fiddly at this point. But you've just got to make sure. See, this t-shirt has been folded for a while, so it's quite hard to open up. There we go. So I've done exactly what I did before as well. So I'm going to cut the top off. Okay. And then just cut across. Now, because this is a big men's t-shirt, the sleeves are lovely and wide, and you can get quite a lot of yarn out of them. If you're using cute little cap sleeve t-shirts in small sizes, it's going to be a bit fiddly, so you might want to rethink whether you're going to use that up or not. It's totally up to you. Okay, so just cut all that across, and you have another length of t-shirt yarn. So you can also cut that into a ball. Okay, it's a much smaller ball this time because there's less fabric, but it'll do. And we have what I'll do is I'll just cut the other sleeve off for now. I'll come back to that in a minute, because I'm sure you all want to know how to use the top. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to cut off the neckband. I can't use that for this project, but I might be able to use it for something else later. I'll just give myself the option there. Okay. So what we can do here, and again, it's going to be a little bit fiddly because this isn't the torso. We can fold it over. Okay, now obviously we'll have to cut around the neckband because, as I said before, we're not using that for this project, but it could be handy for something else. It might braid really nicely and be useful for bag handles, for example. But yeah, it doesn't really fit with our project right now. So, okay, so I have it just like this, and now I'm going to take the shoulders. I'm going to fold it, so align the shoulders. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut more strips. Okay, and again I'm going to stop just there. Now don't worry if you get this wrong. You can just tie the pieces together if you want to, or if you want to cut, if you want to just use the torso, that is fine too. You don't have to. I'm just showing you how to use up the rest of the fabric if you want a zero waste project. So again, I've just gone 1 inch strips. I'm cutting it right to the end. Well, not right to the end, sorry. Just before I get to the end, I'm stopping so that there's a bit for me to trim later. If you don't want to do this, if you'd rather just use the torso, that's fine. Get through there. You can just use it as cleaning rags. Much better for cleaning windows and glass with than microfiber, because they don't contain any microplastics, and when you wash them in the washing machine they don't shed any microplastics either. It's hard cutting all these layers together. Okay, so I've just stopped there and discarded that extra fabric because I don't need it. Okay. So I've spread the fabric out again so that I can cut it on the diagonal to create 1 strip. And obviously there will be more knots to tie up with the lower half of the upper half of the t-shirt, but if you want to use all the yarn, then by all means do so. So just cut across the diagonal again. And then the last one. Okay, and then what I'll have to do is I'll have to tie these together, but if I want all of that yarn, it will be worth it in the end. And you can disguise the knots. And I'll show you as well what you can make with your t-shirt yarn. So what I'm working on at the moment is a half circle t-shirt rug. I need to do a bit more work on it because it's not big enough for the dog to lie on. So I need a few more rows. But that is how you make your own t-shirt yarn. So if you like that and you found it helpful, please leave a comment, like and subscribe, and I'll show you some other eco-friendly ways to use up old fabric.